Hello, everybody. We're coming back to you from RPT Convention 2026 here in Houston, Texas. And we've got our Republican nominee for Texas Railroad Commission, Bo French. Bo, thank you for joining us.
Destin, great to be here. How are you today?
Doing great, doing great. Convention's moving right along. We have been pushing really diligently on three things. That's property tax elimination, banning taxpayer-funded lobbying, and then defunding the lottery. Those are our three big LPs we've pushed, but there's a lot of other things that we like to talk about and are advocating for, and one of those is defunding woke and weaponized government. Bo, is it fair to say that a lot of your campaign had to do with defunding woke and weaponized government, and what does that look like?
Absolutely. I think, traveling the state, talking to voters all across Texas, people are frustrated with the scope of our government.
Yeah.
And the size and the amount of money that the budget increases every 2 years, what we're spending on. And so that is something that I think really resonates with people. We're paying taxes, and our government is taking our taxes and spending that in ways that we don't necessarily always agree with. And so it really is frustrating when they push things like DEI and then using government to go after people or businesses. And so I think that part of my campaign was really highlighting the biggest DEI program we have in Texas, and the agency that I'm running for has also used that program, and it's a big part of what they do. And so I think that we need to look to just totally eliminate that and stop awarding contracts based on skin color or gender or some other checkbox, as opposed to just awarding contracts based on merit. And that is something that obviously resonated with the voters.
Right. I think it's just crazy to consider that the commission or the government agency that I think most people consider to be run by more blue-collar, down-to-earth, ordinary, everyday people, right, is one of the worst examples of DEI in government. Surely it's in other places, but what are some of the other things that you think ought to happen at the Railroad Commission as you look at coming on board, being a part of that team that oversees that? And where's our oil and gas industry today?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just on the DEI thing, I think so much of that is pushed by the bureaucrats. The commissioners are all fine people,
sure,
individuals. I like them all individually, but it has less to do with that, I think, than it is just this sort of out of control bureaucracy.
Right.
And I think that happens. We see that in Washington, D.C., of course. We see that in Texas. Yeah. It's not, people don't focus on that as much, but it really is critical here in Texas. And as for the oil and gas industry in Texas, look, this is our largest and most important industry. There are roughly 500,000 people in Texas directly employed by the oil and gas industry. There's another 1.5 million people employed in businesses related to the industry. And so when you're talking 2 million jobs in Texas, it is critical that we strengthen this industry in Texas. We produce 43% of the oil in the United States. It's a national security issue, and it directly affects our economy in significant ways. And so by reducing the costs on the industry, as opposed to these new regulations that they implemented last year that actually raise costs on the industry, it's not just the industry. People are thinking, oh, well, the corporations are paying more money.
Right.
Now, that trickles down to the consumer because it means that oil prices have to be higher, which means the price people pay at the pump has to be higher,
right,
to keep these businesses operating. And so, reducing, I'm kind of like in the Donald Trump camp. I don't mind a new regulation every now and then, but for every new regulation, we're going to eliminate 10 other regulations.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the camp that I fall in.
Wow. What do you make, Bo, of this primary, right? So this is the Republican convention. We're putting a bow on the Republican primary process. It feels like candidates, regardless of where they are politically, ran on more conservative platforms than they had in the past, right? And the ones that were elected tended to be the people who were most conservative. Why is that? Where do you think our party is as Republicans? And what should we expect to see in November?
Well, I think that is a reflection, and you're absolutely right. I think that is a reflection of just the growth in Texas. Since before 2020, people who moved to Texas often were, fleeing high taxes or whatever.
Right.
They came to Texas, but a lot of them brought their politics with them. Since 2020, and polling data suggests this, the people who moved here are actually much more conservative.
Wow. Yeah.
And so my belief is that the electorate is actually more conservative than it's ever been. And I think that bears out with who who won in these primaries. And if you look at the slate of Republicans who won, this is the most conservative slate we have ever offered up in November, ever.
Yeah.
And then you contrast that with the Democrats. It is the most radical, bunch of communists they have ever put up. And so the distinction couldn't be more clear. And to steal a line from James Tallarico, the choice in November is binary.
I see what you did.
Normally I get a lot of applause when I say that, but
it's just you and me, bud.
I know it didn't hit as well here, did it? But I mean, the contrast could not be more clear.
Yeah.
We have a huge battle in front of us. The Democrats are going to spend, estimates are as high as $500 million in Texas.
Wow.
Because they think they can replicate the energy they had in 2018 with Beto O'Rourke. And I don't think LGBT Tallarico is going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Or any of those statewide. I mean, they just don't have the energy that he had. So I think that we're going to be okay, but it's going to require the people who right now are still upset that their preferred candidate didn't win in the primary.
Yeah.
But this is why we have primaries. I'm all for a robust primary. I think it's a good and healthy thing for Texas.
For sure.
But, over time, most of those people will come back in and do the right thing in November. I'm confident of that. And look, we're going to be in every corner of the state. I'm going to be working with all the other nominees to ensure that Republicans around the state understand that, look, we fought in the primary, of course, but we have, I like to use a football analogy. We have set the starting lineup.
Yeah.
We have our team set. Now it's time for everybody to come and support the team to make sure we defeat the enemy.
Right. Wow. Bo, anything else you'd say just to delegates here in Houston or all of the folks at home watching about what you're working on, what your plans are for the Railroad Commission, and why we should be excited about you being a part of our slate in November in the first place?
Yeah, well, I would say, it's not just me. I think that certainly I bring a perspective that...
You're a younger guy. You've got fresher ideas. I think you paint with bold colors. That, I think, is all fair, Bo. So what does that look like in office?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's just continuing to do what I have done and found success with in the past, and that's just being a bold defender of our values, of our culture, of our Republican Party platform. I think that's the kind of thing that resonates with our voters, and it's the kind of thing that I know will help Texas. And so, of course, I will continue doing that. As it pertains specifically to the Railroad Commission, regulating the oil and gas industry, is just being laser focused on being good stewards of the taxpayer dollars that we're allocated, and which means not spending any money on DEI and things like that, but definitely strengthening our industry and making it the strongest industry there is in Texas, because it is important for all Texans, not just the companies, but for our consumers as well.
Anything for the delegates and folks at home?
Yeah, I would
parting word, if you will.
I would just say the choice in November is clear, and we have to fight it, which means, look, it is a off-year election or a midterm election. It's not the presidential election.
Right.
Turnout will be lower.
Sure.
Which means that every additional person we can get to the polls will have an outsized impact on the result of the race. So to delegates, to people at home, we need to get out. Everybody needs to call their family. Everybody needs to call their friends. Get people to the polls. Get your friend who says they vote every 4 years in the presidential election. And thank God you did, because President Trump's our president now. But we need to get that person back to the polls this November, because really this is our opportunity to save Texas, which means we save the country.
We just wrapped up an interview with Bo French, our Republican Railroad Commission candidate for the state of Texas. We're at RPT Convention here in Houston 2026. Thank you all for tuning in, and more content coming to you here shortly.